Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 258 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week once again by the former heavyweight world title challenger. It is, of course, he's fast. He's Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing, man?
Good, my brother. How you feeling?
Always good. Finish the sentence.
When I'm talking to you. Yeah, there you go. Stole your shit.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, once again, another podcast, and it's going to be short and sweet, really, with the talking part. The interview later on will be in depth. It's going to be with the former WBA Super-Bantamweight world champion, Berry's very own Scott Quigg. That'll be interesting. So that will take place at the very end of the podcast. But as ever, let's dive straight into the review part. I'm going to start here with a card that took place at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, USA. I got to be honest. I was terrible. I was a terrible boxing fan this weekend just gone. I didn't really watch anything at all. It's been a real hectic week for me, so I'm just going to fly through these results. Like I said, we're going to start here in Connecticut. Erickson Lubin, he got the win in the end, 23-1, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Terrell Gausha, who's now 21-2 with a draw. Like I say, both men had boxed for world titles in the past. Both men had come up short. This one was for the vacant WBC Silver Super Welterweight title. Like I say, both men were kind of in similar positions, really. They both wanted to get back, to title level, I guess, to world title level, and a good win for Erickson Lubin. From what I'm hearing, he was pretty much winning every round, and then late on in the fight, Terrell Gausha decided to up his game, if you like, and had a lot of success. I think he rocked Lubin quite badly late on, but he wasn't able to really capitalise on it, and he lost in the end, fair and square, Terrell Gausha. So a good win there for Lubin. On the undercard, we had Tukstot Niambiar, known as King Tug. His record now 12-1. Obviously, he'd been in there with Gary Russell Jr. That's where the loss came from. He managed to carve out a split decision win over 12 rounds against the previously undefeated Cobia Breedy. Breedy was down in the first round and the second round, but like I say, he got up off the canvas, and it ended in a split decision, which is quite crazy when you think about it. Niambiar's a great fighter, was a tremendous amateur, has you down in the first and second round, so presumably you lose those rounds 10-8 times 2, so you're already 4 points down going into round 3, and you managed to win on one card. It was actually Don Treller's card, and he gave it to Cobia Breedy by 4 points, which is mad. Let's total that up quickly, Eddie, if you can help me there, because my on-the-spot maths isn't too great. Sorry to put you on the spot, but if you're knocked down in the first and second round, you're 4 points down. You're going into round 3. How do you manage to win the fight by 4 points? So that would mean
it's a 12-round fight, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying so if he won, so say he was down 4 points already. If it's 8-4 his way, that's just a draw, right? If I'm not mistaken. So I mean that would be like, wait, if you're 4 points down, obviously
4 points down. I'm guessing he must
have.
No,
that's 8. Let me see. My math skills are kind of move too.
Well, hang on. Let's do it this way. So let's just be real simple with it. He loses the first 2 rounds 10-8, 10-8. Third round, let's say he won the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. That means he's leveled it up. Then going into the second half of the fight, he would have to win. He must have won 5 of the 6 rounds to giving away 1 and winning 5, that means he's clinched it by 4 points. So that's how
Right. Yeah.
that's how Don Trella saw it. So that means literally,
right?
yeah, other than the 2 knockdown rounds in round 1 and 2, Don Trella gave every single round aside from 1 of the remaining 10 rounds to Kobe Abridi. Interesting. The scores, the other scores, obviously went Niambiar's way by 2 points, Glenn Feldman, and I think by 1, might have been 2, Steve Weisfeld. So interesting one. It sounds like it was full of drama. Actually, if anyone's seen the fight, I haven't. Let me know.
Does it remind you of the Eric Morales and Juan Manuel No, I'm sorry. The Juan Manuel Marquez Manny Pacquiao. Because you remember when he dropped him like 4 times or something like that in the first half of the fight, and the fight ended up being a draw, but the scorecards were so crazy because I think toward the end they gave most of the rounds obviously to Marquez, but there was obviously another judge who decided to give the majority of the rounds even after the knockdowns to Pacquiao, but still, even within it was more kind of even. But the knockdowns were the difference, and then one I think was a draw. So it was that sounds honestly a lot like that particular fight in the past. So that's how I would look at it. I'm as far as the action was going, I would figure it was pretty much back and forth and hard to judge.
Sounds like it. And also on the undercard, Philly's very own Jerome Ennis. I think, is it Jerome or Jerron? Eddie.
Jerome.
Right. Apologies. I've been saying Jerome for about 4 years. Jerome. I've even seen the guy in the flesh, which not a lot of Brits can say. So Jerome Ennis, 26-0 now. They say, Eddie. Sometimes they say, when you turn pro, you learn. What do they say? 20 to learn and 20 to earn, right? So
yeah.
I've got to say.
Good,
You like that one, Eddie?
I like that one.
Yeah, I've got to say, Ennis now, he's ticking all the boxes. He's looking very, very, very good. No one is, a disbeliever. Everyone believes he can be a megastar. But 26-0 now, begging for a step up in my eyes. I just need to see the step up. I mean, he's boxed this guy, Juan Carlos Abreu. Abreu had never been stopped. He'd been in there with some good fighters, some big punchers, never been stopped. Ennis stopped him here in 6 rounds of a scheduled 10-round fight. He was down in the 5th round and twice in the 6th and final round. I just want to see Ennis stepped up though, really, because he's a welterweight. There's yourself. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of names at welterweight. There's no real reason why we're not seeing him in with someone who has a semi-good name. There's so many guys. Doesn't have to be a world beater, doesn't have to be a world champion or a former world champion. It can just be someone near the top 15 or 20 or 25. There's like I say, it's littered with big names. Even like an Ivan Redkach would be a brilliant kind of guy to use, in my opinion. But yeah, I want to see him stepped up. But a lot of people tipping him to be the future of the welterweight division. Him and Virgil Ortiz Jr. Obviously, Ortiz Jr., he's been stepping it up recently with some good wins. I want to see Ennis do the same. Moving out now to the bubble in the MGM Grand Las Vegas, Nevada. Efia Jagba, I actually did watch this one. Efia Jagba managed to clinch the win, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds, very wide in the end against Jonathan Rice, who's now 13-6 with a draw. Efia Jagba, like I say, 14-0. A little bit frustrating to watch it at times. It seemed like he had that kind of willingness to coast at times. You kind of had that feeling that if he was to up the pace and put his foot on the gas a bit more, he could have forced a stoppage, something like that, but he seemed to be quite happy to just let the fight play out, and for that reason it wasn't the most entertaining or exciting fight, anything like that. It actually dragged on, which doesn't get said too much in heavyweight boxing, at least. So yeah, a win nonetheless, but I want to see him up the excitement levels a little bit. The top of that card was Jose Pedraza winning a fight against Javier Molina. Pedraza now 28-3, Molina 22-3. It ended in a unanimous decision over 10 rounds there for Pedraza, quite wide in the end. Also on the undercard, I forgot to mention almost, Robisi Ramirez, the two-time Olympic gold medalist. He picked up a win. He's now 5-1. A unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Felix Caraballo, who's now 13-3 with 2 draws. He pitched a shutout there, Ramirez. Seems like we've spoke about him lots and lots of times. For some reason, Eddie, we're always doing a show together when he fights. It's quite weird. Anyway, that is it for that one. The final card to mention took place in Ukraine at the Bartolomeo Best River Resort. Let's start with the undercard. Ali Eren Demirizian. Demirizian. I was saying it wrong last time. I'm going to try and get it right here. Demirizian, I think it said. Anyway, he took on heavyweight tough man / journeyman, really, but tough guy nonetheless. Kamil Sokolowski and Demirizian managed to win the fight. A unanimous decision over 6 rounds there. Quite expected, I guess. And the top of the bill, Andrei Rudenko. He was back to winning ways. He's now 33-5. A unanimous decision win over 10 rounds against Konstantin Dovbishenko, who now has a negative record, 7-8 with a draw. Unanimous decision over 10 rounds. Like I say, very wide in the end for Rudenko. A guy who I still think has a few fights left in him, big fights left in him. I'd like to see him over here perhaps with a couple of our prospects on the up. Still quite a semi-big name, I guess, but I said it on last week's show and I'm saying it again this week for no apparent reason. But anyway, that brings the review part to a close. I don't think I've ever done this before, but I'm just going to roll straight into the preview part here. We're not going to be discussing the big Klitschko Chambers fight on this week's podcast. It's just going to be a regular review, preview, news and guest show. Eddie, of course, is with me nonetheless, and we'll definitely be speaking about the Klitschko fight at a later date, whether it be next week or the following week. It certainly will be in the month of October. That's what I can promise. So yeah, that to look forward to in the next couple of weeks. Going straight now into the preview part of the show. I'm going to start here in France, and just before I get into it, the news I'm going to do at the very, very end when I'm signing out with the outro, as I do every week. So I'm going to save the news to the very end of the show. Let's start here, like I said, with the preview part in Paris at the La Défense Arena. It's gone under the radar massively. It takes place tomorrow night, Friday, September 25th. Tony Yoka, the gold medalist Olympian from the 2016 Olympics, controversially beat our very own Joe Joyce in the finals. 7-0 as a professional. He takes on Johan Duhaupas. That's a brilliant fight. I really, really like that one over 12 rounds there. Duhaupas, of course, 38-5. If he's in the right mood, he could cause Yoka some problems, I believe. Moving out now to Mexico at Las Torres de Tijuana. Gonna go easy on the pronunciation. Not trying to make you jealous again, Eddie. I know you want to punch me when I bring out the.
Nah,
I'm joking.
Nah, it just makes me want to step up my game.
Well, anyway, over here we get to see Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. return to the ring. I thought he was retired, to be honest, but he's back in a 10-rounder. 51-4 with a draw. I don't think I've seen him fight since he had that fight against Daniel Jacobs, in which he was doing really well, and then he just seemingly quit in the corner. It was very bizarre. Anyway, he's back against Mario Cazares, who's actually undefeated, 11-0. Never heard of the guy. Best of luck to him. 10 rounds in Mexico. Moving out now to Germany. This one is on DAZN. It's on Sky Sports, of course, at a sensible hour for the UK fans. It's going to be quite early on the Saturday for the US people that want to watch it. It is, of course, the finals, the cruiserweight finals of the World Boxing Super Series. The undercard isn't fantastic, but who cares? It's all about the main event. The Cuban Uniel Daltakos, the KO Doctor, 24-1. He takes on Maris Bradis, 26-1. That one's for the IBF World Cruiserweight title. Of course, Daltakos has that loss to Murat Gassiev, and Maris Bradis has his loss in a brilliant fight against Alexander Usyk. So, both men have lost to guys that were world champions at cruiserweight and moved up to heavyweight. So really and truly, the winner of this fight, in most people's eyes, is the king of the division. There's a lot on the line. I really like Daltakos. That's a great fight. He could knock Bradis out, but Bradis is so good. He's also a policeman in his spare time in Latvia. Brilliant fight. Moving out now to that one's taking place in Germany, but moving out to a part in Latvia, a part of Latvia, I should say, Riga, at the Studio 69. I wonder what goes down there. Big Baby Miller in the house. We don't know. Could be. Who knows? Over here, though, Ricards Bolotniks, 16-5 with a draw. Obviously, he scored a brilliant knockout win against Stephen Ward in this Golden Contract tournament. This is the semi-finals. He takes on our very own Hosea Burton, 25-1 over 10 rounds. Hosea Burton, I feel, has bundles of talent. It's been quite frustrating watching the last few years of his career because I really believe in him. I think he's really good. Obviously, he's got that one loss to Frank Buglioni in a fight he was winning until he gets stopped, in the last 30 seconds of the last round, So since then, he's been treading water. He's just been in meaningless fights. He's disappeared. He's been inactive. He was, I think he was out in the States for Fury Wilder 1, and he bumped into his arch nemesis, his rival at light heavyweight, Anthony Yarde at the time. And, Yarde was still undefeated. He hadn't boxed Kovalev yet. There was back and forth there. We never got to see the fight. It just seems a real shame. It's almost like he's been a wasted talent. I really hope he can win this fight, win it well, progress to the finals, win that, and, hopefully there's something, something good to come in his career, because I think he's got a lot of ability, Hosea Burton. Moving out now to York Hall, Bethnal Green, London. This one is a world title fight main event. Josh Taylor puts his WBA and IBF World Super Lightweight titles on the line. 16-0. He takes on his mandatory, who's also 16-0, Apinan Kongsong. It's over 12 rounds. We don't know too much about Kongsong. Really and truly, Josh Taylor should look to make a statement and get his man out of there. On the undercard, former WBC Flyweight World Champion Charlie Edwards, 15-1. He's in a 10-rounder against Carl Williams, who's 11-2. Obviously, Charlie Edwards has moved up in weight for this fight. I think he might have even moved up 2 weight classes, if I'm not mistaken. But it is his debut fight with Frank Warren, so all the best to him. Friend of the show, he's on the intro every week. Also on the undercard, we've got David Oliver Joyce, 12-1. He fights for the WBO European Super-Bantamweight title against Iron Up Baluta, who's 13-2. That's really it for that one. Moving out now to the Mohegan Sun Casino, once again in Connecticut. Bringing us boxing 2 times in a 7-day period, but this card here is not to be missed. Obviously in the States it's going to be on pay-per-view on Showtime, and here in the UK you can watch it on Fight TV, which is an app. I don't know why I'm saying application like I'm about 85 years of age, but an app that you can download on your smartphones, on your tablets, whatever it is. And the reason I'm giving them quite a good plug here is because you can use my code, which is as follows, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just pull it up here. And you can buy the pay-per-view. I don't know how they do it really. There's some kind of credit scheme within the app or whatever. And if you use my code, which is ZEOW7N for Nigeria and P for Portugal. So that is like ZEOW7NP. If you use that code, I believe you get $10 off of the pay-per-view price, something like that. And I get some sort of credit as well for sharing it. So if you need me to send you the code properly, just hit me up on Twitter, of course, at BoxHard Podcast, and you can save me money, I can save you money, and we can both watch a good night of boxing. Let's start though with the undercard. We get to see friend of the show, one of my favourite young fighters in the world, Brandon Figueroa, 20-0 with a draw. He puts his WBA World Super-Bantamweight title on the line against Damian Vasquez, who's 15-1 with a draw. When do we ever see a fight that a Figueroa brother is involved in that isn't full of fighting? It's that they just like to fight Mexican style down to a T. That always excites me, so I'm looking forward to that. Also on the undercard, we get to see John Real Casimero, 29-4, defend his WBO World Bantamweight title against Duke Micah, 24-0. I think he's a South African fighter. Definitely from Africa. Good fighter as well. I'm hearing good things. It's his time to shine on a big undercard. We also get to see Luis Nery, 30-0. This one's for the vacant WBC World Super Bantamweight title. He takes on Aaron Alameda, who's 25-0. We also get to see Daniel Roman, another friend of the show, former unified world champion, 27-3 with a draw. He's in a 12-rounder against Juan Carlos Payano, who's 21-3. That is going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. He was supposed to be taking on Emmanuel Rodriguez. We did an interview about the fight. Then a couple of days after, the fight fell out of bed and the interview was pretty much pointless. But, you know, I put it out there in the end, and it's always great to speak to Daniel Roman, and he's another great guy and a great fighter. He always brings his A game, and it's always exciting seeing him fight as well. So that's just the undercard. Let's get on to the two main events. It's like, you know, a main event, a co-main event. They'll be arguing all night long, you know, which one's the real main event. Let's start though with Jermell Charlo, 33-1. He takes on Jason Rosario. Eddie, we know him really well. We were both watching that fight. I don't think we were together. I think I was watching it in the hotel. You were watching it at home. And, you know, we couldn't believe what we saw when Rosario came to Philadelphia, upset the apple cart, stole the title away from J-Rock Julian Williams in his homecoming world title defense. And ever since then, Rosario, you know, his name and everything has just shot up now. And here he is in a big pay-per-view card against Jermell Charlo. It's going to be a brilliant fight at 154.
100%. I couldn't agree more. That is a very, very appetizing fight. It's guaranteed that somebody's going to be out of there. But sometimes in those kind of fights, it ends up going to decision because I guess the guys are a little tougher than you expect them to be. But the reality of this is, man, I really like this kid. What do you call him? Banana. He surprised me a lot with Julian. I feel like, of course, Julian had the speed and skill edge to a degree, but this kid, when he puts his hands on you, it's something different. Like, I mean, we've seen Julian get stopped before by a Charlo, but the way he was on, you know, you could just see his legs and the reaction to the punches, man. This guy really can punch. And he's like a seek and destroy kind of guy. Like, once he gets that you know, that homing device on you, it could be over. And it's good to see a fight like this where he's fighting another powerful guy like that, like a Charlo like that. You know what I mean? They're a little more explosive than he is, speed and in skill wise a little bit, but he has that extra gear with the power. So I'm not sure. I want to see what happens with the fight. He throws really long, powerful shots, pause. but it's a really dangerous fight for Charlo. You know what I mean? And so I commend him for taking it, and he's definitely going to be challenged there.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. And I just want to apologize just briefly because I said on the undercard Duke Micah, I said he's from Africa, but I really thought he was from South Africa. I completely got it wrong. Schoolboy error. He's from Ghana. He's known as the baby-faced Terminator. So, all the best to Duke Micah. And, of course, we can't mention one Charlo without the other. Jermell Charlo defending his WBC World Middleweight title over 12 rounds, of course, and his undefeated record as well, 30-0. He takes on Sergei Derevianchenko, 13-2. Derevianchenko, I've said it millions of times, one of the best fighters in the middleweight division. Obviously has those 2 losses on points to Daniel Jacobs in a split decision. It could have gone either way, honestly. Very close fight. And then to Gennady Golovkin. Gennady did beat him unanimously. Derevianchenko was down in the first round in that fight, and funny enough, he was down in the first round against Daniel Jacobs. But even in that Gennady Golovkin fight, a lot of people had Derevianchenko winning, even though it was unanimous. A lot of people had him winning. It even seems like more people had him winning that than they had him winning the Daniel Jacobs fight, in which that one was actually a split decision. But anyway, tough guy. Yeah, I just think this is a seriously dangerous fight for Jermall Charlo, and I almost applaud him for taking it. Yeah, talk to me about this one, Eddie. Another brilliant fight. It's just worth the money. I'd rarely ever say that. I look at a pay-per-view, and this time I'm saying, take my money, baby. Take it.
Yeah, please. Yeah, this is one of those things where, I'm a fighter, you know what I mean? And trust me, I'm used to it.
I never knew you was a fighter. I never knew you was a fighter.
Isn't it crazy, Joey?
Honestly, you've never mentioned it in all these podcasts we've done.
I didn't? Dang, what is wrong with me? Sorry for saying that. Sorry for not saying that. But the reality of it is, and certain fights, you hear about and you get excited. Like for example, the Lomachenko and
Teofimo.
And Teofimo Lopez
fight. That's an exciting fight. That's something I'm excited for because of the skill level that is going to be in that fight and all. But when you look at a fight like this is guaranteed action and high skill level and danger. It's at every turn. It's like power. Jermall Charlo is a really powerful puncher, good skill fighter, tough. You know what I mean? Same thing with Derevianchenko. Like he's all and he's aggressive. And he comes forward and he throws punches and bunches. It's a can't miss fight. And when you say it's dangerous for him, I mean it's absolutely dangerous because we saw him get hit by Golovkin and get out the try and basically win the fight. Most people think. So imagine he better be carrying some real heavy hammers in them gloves if he's going to hit this guy and keep him down. So it's going to be. This is the kind of thing I'm looking forward to. I really want to see it. And like I said, I've seen a lot of things. I've been in the ring a long time. I've been involved in these types of things. So I'm really, really excited to see what happens. I really applaud both of the brothers for taking this fight. These fights, these are extremely dangerous fights, but you're a world champion. You're supposed to take on all comers. You ain't supposed to hide from anybody. So like I said, once again, I applaud them for doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I can't say it any better myself. Really, really looking forward to that as well. And you've just brought up there the fact that obviously Derevianchenko was down against Golovkin. He got back up. If Golovkin can't keep you down, if Danny Jacobs can't keep you down, in my eyes, they're both bigger punchers than Jermall Charlo. That's just my opinion.
Let's call it. Let's say it's more proven punchers, you know what I mean, and been in those heavier weights for a bit longer, and obviously been around a bit longer. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think if Jermall were to actually stop Derevianchenko legitimately, that is just a huge statement. But I can't see it based on the fact that Danny and Gennady couldn't keep him down. But that's just what I think. Anyway. I hope it's a great fight. And the final fight to mention of the preview part of the show, just before we wrap this up and bring in our sole guest, it takes place next Wednesday, September 30th. Of course, by the time we record the show next week, the fight would have already taken place. I've said that a million times before. This one takes place at the Production Park Studios in South Kirkby, Yorkshire. It's going to be on ESPN Plus and I'm guessing IFL TV. What do we have over here? We have Stephen Ward on the undercard, 12-1. He takes on a guy called Joan Valau, who's 5-5. We get to see Liam Conroy, 18-5 with a draw in a 10-rounder against Serge Michel, who is 10-1. Liam Conroy, this is the other light heavyweight semi-final. The winner of this fight takes on the winner of Bolotniks and Jose Burton. And also we get to see Ryan Walsh 26-2 with 2 draws in a 10-rounder against Jazza Dickens, who's 29-3. Someone, I'm not quite sure what tournament that is, but it is the Golden Contract Tournament. I'm not quite sure what stage it is in the tournament. I don't think it's the finals yet. I think it's the semis, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. They're doing a lot of things at the minute, MTK, with these Golden Contract tournaments, etc. And many fight nights they've brought us on a Wednesday. I'm just a little bit confused at the minute with that. There's a lot to keep track of, but another fight, I think it's topping the bill. It should top the bill anyway. O'Hara Davies, 21-2 in a 10-rounder against Tyrone McKenna, 21-1 with a draw. In many people's eyes, Tyrone McKenna's very fortunate to even be in this fight here. A lot of people felt he lost his last fight to Mohamed Mamoun, the Frenchman. It was a robbery. Let's be completely honest. Even the referee didn't want to pick up the hand of McKenna when the result was announced. It was quite a bad decision all round from the judges. They gave the fight to McKenna, which of course set up the McKenna-O'Hara Davies final, and there's so much bad blood there, you have to kind of think that subtly played a part, I should say, in those scorecards that we saw. But yeah, it's going to be a good fight anyway. McKenna-O'Hara Davies, very, very interesting fight. Like I say, very spicy build-up. Both men had some sort of scuffle on the street in the past during an interview once. So we get to see it in the ring. I think O'Hara Davies is way too much for Tyrone McKenna. That's my opinion anyway. But we shall see how the fight plays out. Like I say, lots and lots to look forward to this weekend and the early part of next week. Wednesday I'm talking about here in Yorkshire. That brings the preview part of the show to a close, though. We've done the review part. We went straight into the preview part. The news I'm going to do at the very end when I'm signing out with the show. The final thing to do just before we welcome our sole guest is just to say thank you, Eddie, for joining me once again. Next time we do a show together, I'm assuming we're going to be doing the big Klitschko talk and the rest of that. So sign out. I want to say thanks once again for having you on, and the listeners are in for a treat with the next lockdown knockdown that I know you're eager to deliver to their ears.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on and being able to tell my story along will help you out with the podcast. It's kind of, it's keeping me alive in this whole thing and keeping me, excited about the sport. And I'm pretty sure it's doing that for a lot of others too. So this is a good opportunity to get these things out there, let people listen and really hear it from a fighter's perspective of what happens in their career, from, dealing with the tough fights, also dealing with the tough fights outside the ring when you're talking about earning. And, it's a pleasure for me to do it. And I just hope this can reach the right guys and let them know what they need to do, and hopefully they can avoid dealing with some of the hardships that a lot of other fighters have to deal with.
Absolutely. Okay, there you have it. That brings all the talking to a close. The final thing now to do is to welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast for a very in-depth interview, the former WBA Super-Bantamweight World Champion, now happily retired, Mr. Scott Quigg. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBA Super-Bantamweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Scott Quigg. Scott, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you very much.
No problem, my friend, no problem. It's a pleasure to have you, Scott. So I want to start here. Obviously, when you took up boxing as a young kid, am I right in saying that you had 12 amateur fights?
Yeah, I only had 12 amateur fights, but before that, I started Thai boxing at the age of 10, and I had 67 Thai boxing fights. So I was used to being in the ring. I had 65 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw.
Wow.
So I'd been in a ring in competitive sports, before I went into boxing. But like I say, I only had 12 amateur fights, so a short amateur career when it comes to boxing. But then, because I went into I won the junior ABAs after 7 fights, then boxed for England, and then, like I said, 12 amateur fights I had, and then ended up turning professional.
Yeah, and it is unbelievable to think that you had that real brief amateur career, and you went on to achieve what you did. Let's start with that. You mentioned you turned professional April 21st, 2007 at the Jarvis Hotel in Manchester. You boxed a guy by the name of Gary Schill. Do you recall much about your debut, Scott?
I mean, we were talking debut. Obviously, I think I've been training under. Obviously, I was with Brian Hughes first, my first professional trainer. So I've been training with a pro for quite a long time, and it was, the build-up, and it was with the limited amateur experience that I'd had. The actual the process of the journey really was, what Brian set out was to learn on the job sort of thing, gain experience and get the right fights and make sure you just improve them. And obviously, the first fight at the Piccadilly Jarvis Hotel, I remember that, and it was probably a memorable night. That was the start of the journey that resulted in me becoming a world champion eventually. But yeah, I remember the night. It was I think it was a points win against Gavin Shield. But like I say, that just gave me the taste for it and the buzz to just keep going, because obviously being in there with no red guard on and everything like that, it was something that I remember strongly.
Again, you jumped straight in a 6-rounder there in your debut, and as you say, you sort of were learning, on the job. If we jump forward now to October 22nd, 2011, at this point you're 22-0, you got 15 KOs, you challenge for the British title against the then champion Jason Booth. The fight ends with Booth retiring on his stool after 7 completed rounds. What do you remember about that night there in Bolton?
I remember that night. Obviously, that was a big moment in my career as well, because that was my first fight with Joe Gallagher as well. So I changed trainers from that. Obviously, I was with Brian, and then I was when Brian retired, I had another fight still up at Collyhurst with Pat Barrett, and then from then I moved on to I linked up with Joe Gallagher then. And our first fight together was for the British title against Jason Booth. That was, I think that was definitely a pivotal moment in my career, because that really did. Obviously, people had the way they'd been performing and the way they'd been beating people, and it was obviously I was supposed to beat most of them. When you're coming through, you're expected to beat the people that are put in front of you, but it was the way I was beating these people and stopping them, stopping fighters that they don't normally get stopped. So I was starting to build a bit of a name from that. But then, like I say, when I beat Jason Booth and stopped him, that I think that opened a lot more people's eyes, as in this kid could be the real deal.
Yeah, and again, it always takes a fight like this to get people believing. But just from your point of view, at this point, you I guess really had no idea that you'd go on to become a world champion and be in many big fights. Just describe to me kind of the feeling that came over you when, you became, the champion of Britain. What was that feeling like? How did it mean to you at that stage? Yeah,
I mean, it was like even though I always believed in myself, obviously, you've got to believe in yourself. Obviously, the goal was always, to become a world champion, like every boxer when they first start. But obviously, becoming the British champion is something that I always had on my radar. And I always believed I was good enough to achieve good things in boxing. And as you're coming through, and it was when I knew Jason Booth had fought at the highest level. He was this was a real test. He's mixed at world level. He's been British champion before. He's well established, as in experienced. He's well respected. And if I wanted to go on and progress and was as good as I believed that I was and could eventually be, I needed to beat people like Jason Booth, and this was a real really the first real test really where it was a legitimate. This will give us a gauge to see how far I could go, and when I passed with flying colours, if I do say so myself, that really did give me belief and really set me on my way, really, so with the momentum I got from that fight, so then the way I kept going.
Yeah, absolutely. And after that, you defend the British title once against Jamie Arthur. You stop him in 8 before having those 2 back-to-back fights against Rendell Munroe for the interim WBA world title. Now, the first one, of course, ended prematurely, a technical draw in the 3rd round after a clash of heads in which you were losing on the cards. The second one, you became the first man to stop Munroe when you got rid of him in 6 on that Hatton-Senchenko undercard when Ricky attempted that comeback. Just tell us about those both fights there against Rendell, Scott.
Well, in both of them training camps, probably up until that date, they was absolutely went perfect. So the first fight, which unfortunately ended in due to a clash of heads, and it was a nasty cut what had opened. But what happened in the second fight was going to happen in the first fight. So I felt so comfortable in there. I could see everything that he was going to do, and there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to do the same job on him in that first fight that I ended up doing in the second fight. And you'll get people, and I've had people say that wouldn't have been the case. Rendell was this, which literally, I could see everything, and I felt so comfortable in the first fight, and that's why I was so I was absolutely gutted the way that fight ended in the first one. So, as I said, I was behind on the card because he was coming out, but I was having a look. I could see everything he was doing. I was comfortable, and honestly, it probably might have gone a couple of rounds longer, but I 100% believe I would have stopped him and got the win even in the first fight. But obviously, with what happened, I took the positives from it because I got another camp. I improved as a fighter. And not only that, I got paid twice to do the same job. So in the end, it worked out best for me. I'm matured as a fighter. I went out to America in between those fights for a bit of a training camp. Then we brought some sparring over from America to help prepare for the rematch. And like I say, it couldn't have worked out any better.
Yeah, and a brilliant win once again. And obviously after that you return, you get a win against the Brazilian William Prado. You became the first man to stop him as well, by the way. After that, that's when you, I believe, get upgraded to the full WBA world champion. Describe for me that moment, Scott.
Yeah, well, it was more of the, obviously, because then after that, after the second Munroe fight, obviously on that big card of it was obviously Ricky Hatton who was hoping it was going to be come back and go on to things. Unfortunately, he got beat. But that fight gave me, the second fight with Munroe, gave me the platform on that big show. And then after that, I ended up signing with Eddie and Matchroom. And then there was the first fight with him was against Prado, like I said, which I stopped him. I think that was the third round, was it?
Third, yeah.
I think it was in the third round. Yeah. And then, like I said, I was upgraded to full world champion. And then it was obviously I would have liked to have won it in the ring, but to be, become world champion and to have what you'd set out to be and you set out to achieve. So when you finally, really accomplish it, it was something that, I was very proud of. But then, as I know how hungry I was to become a world champion. Then when you become a world champion, you've got a target on your back, because obviously everybody wants to. If you're a boxer and you first put the gloves on, everybody wants to become a world champion. So when I become world champion, there's a target on your back, and you've got to keep working harder and improving, because everyone. I know how hungry I was when I was aiming and progressing to trying to get in the position to become world champion. So you got to understand that you got to keep working hard. When you get to the top, it's not about resting on what you've achieved. You've got to keep working even harder to stay there. And obviously that's what I did, and it was a proud moment to become world champion.
And let's talk about your first defence. You made your first defence on October 5th, 2013 against Yoandris Salinas. Salinas was a well-schooled Cuban fighter, an extensive amateur career. Obviously, the mainstream kind of, not the mainstream, the casual kind of fans over here didn't really know much about him going in. Joshua, of course, made his pro debut that night as well, O2 Arena, London. Fight ends in a majority draw after 12. What do you recall of that night there, Scott?
I recall it was a good night. It was obviously he was a very, very well schooled fighter. When he was a decorated amateur, he had all the shots in the book for the first 4 or 5 rounds. Whatever shot he threw, he landed. So, like I said, for the first 4 rounds, whatever he wanted to do, he was in total control. I remember thinking after the 3rd round, this is going to be a long night, but I'll find a way. And I remember he was just throwing shots at me. He was throwing jab. I was right, I'll slip this one, both landed. He threw a right hand, landed. And whatever he threw, it seemed I couldn't get out of the way of. But I just thought sooner or later he'll start to slow. And after I think he was round 5, and I caught him with a shot, and I thought, right, now he's starting to rest in between now, and he's starting to look, and I started to put the pressure on him and just make him work, and it worked him, to be honest with you. And when I watch the fight back now, I definitely believe I won that fight. So I know it ended up being a draw, but it was Ricky Burns that just. I'm not sure. I just thought Ray Beltran should have got that, and he was up raw. And I think the judges was under the scrutiny of, like, you go to England, you're not gonna get a decision. So I think, to be honest, that played a part. Any close round he would have given to win, but don't get me wrong, it was a close fight anyway. But I 100% believe I won that fight. But I kept the title obviously with the draw. And then I went on quite a bit of a successful run then after that.
Yeah, you certainly did, and it starts with 3 defences in a row, all at the MEN Arena. The first against Diego Silva on the Froch Groves 1 undercard. After that, you boxed Shawifa Munyai, and then after that, you boxed Stefan Jamoy. On all 3 occasions, you became the quickest man to stop your opponent in all 3 of those fights. You took them all out within 3 rounds. Just tell me a couple words on those 3 good wins, impressive wins, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Silva fight was what it was. He was a solid fighter, but he was no world beater. That was basically a routine defence. I'm not going to try and kid myself and building for as if he was, a real dangerous tough opponent, because he wasn't. The Munyai defence were obliterated in. Joining his people, pundits, at the time, and around a couple of the gyms in Manchester that was working with Munyai was picking him to cause an upset. And obviously we'd all seen Munyai on these shows before come over here and called him the Brit Basher, because obviously every time we come over here we was knocking him out. and Munyai, he was a solid operator, you know, and a dangerous opponent, and it was a late switch as well. And I'd been training for a totally different style because I was supposed to be boxing Paulus Abundi, and then it was 2.5 weeks before it got switched. But Munyai, obviously, he was in training for another fight, and obviously he jumped at the chance. So it was dangerous in that way as well, with a totally different style switch, and then obviously knowing the quality that he already possessed anyway. But then to go in there and obliterate him in 2 rounds, you know, and that shut a lot of people up, and you know, it was the way I did it as well. But like I said, it was a few people that was in Manchester, around the gyms in Manchester, was picking him to beat me, and like I say, I went out there and totally destroyed him.
Yeah, that was a class win, and you know, you mentioned he was known as the Brit Basher. Obviously, knocked out Lee Haskins, knocked out Martin Power. Did you want to have a word on the defence after that? We mentioned it. It was one of the 3, Stefan Jamoy.
Oh yeah, again he was again. I'm not going to try and build him up as a real world beater, because he wasn't, but he was a good, solid operator again. He's been over and fought over it. He was a solid operator, and again, I went in there and did something that nobody else had done to him before. You know, stopped him, quickest to stop him, and it was a good, solid win, that.
Yeah, for sure. After that, obviously, you take on the very tough Japanese Hidenori Oteki on the Bellew Cleverly 2 undercard in Liverpool. Then it brings me on to my personal favourite win of your career, that second round demolition job over former world champion Kiko Martinez. Obviously, Carl Frampton at that point was the only man to have beaten him. He'd done it twice. Carl stopped him in 9 in the first fight. He beat him on points the second time round, and you absolutely destroyed him in 2. You know, he wasn't shot or anything at that point. He was still in good form. You know, he even went on after that to have that razor-tight fight against Josh Warrington. You know, he boxed the likes of Leo Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr., but no one ever got him out as quick as you did. Tell us about that unbelievable win back in July 2015, Scott.
Yeah, I'd probably say that it's probably going to be the best win of my career, and probably one of the best nights, to be honest with you. Obviously, with what it led to as well, and obviously the build-up at that time, obviously coming at that time, me and Carl Frampton was on the collision course, and this was, you know, I'm sure he fought the same night as well, over in Texas. So there was a lot riding on it. The stakes was high. Martinez was a very, very dangerous fighter, and the training camp leading up to that fight was absolutely perfect. The way what we worked on, the way we were setting things up, and I say this, but the fight, you know, obviously I stopped him into it. That wasn't a fluke. That shot, you know, that we picked out. I've got every sparring session that I did in that camp. I've got all the training that I did, videoed, everything. What we worked on is exactly what we executed in the fight. You know, the first round, you know, you got some people were saying, you know, I caught him and I got lucky. And whether it would have been in the second round, the 6th round, the 8th round, or whatever, the shot, what I landed was the shot that we was working on, the way we was moving, everything that we'd done. That was exactly, he just literally opened the gaps and opened the door for us to land them, and as soon as I did. So in the first round, we knew he was going to come out, and I wanted to test his power, see if he was as heavy-handed as what he was known to be for. And I remember after the first round, And he said, and if you watch the fight, you see on the corner. When I'm in the corner, you see Joe. You hear Joe saying, "Look for the uppercut. It's there." And obviously come out with the second round. He come out with a bit more intent, and I was moving exactly what we've been doing in training, exactly what we've been doing to set him up, and he just basically, took the bait. And then as soon as I landed the uppercut, and it landed and his legs dipped. Then I just thought, at that level, and with that dangerous of an opponent who can hit like he hit, when you've got them going and you can see the finish and you've got the chance to take them out, you've got to take that chance, because if you don't take it, it can come back to haunt you. And as soon as I seen his legs dip, I seen he was hurt, I just thought, right, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink next door's kitchen sink at him as well. So I weren't letting him off, and when I went for the kill, that's what I did, and obviously, thankfully, I took him out.
Yeah, and like I say, it was just such a brilliant win. I remember at the time watching it on TV and just being blown away by how impressive it was. And you're right, later on that night, everyone switched over to tune in for Carl Frampton fighting in Texas. You're right, the same night. And obviously it wasn't overly impressive from him. He was down twice, I think in the first round or whatever, against Alejandro Gonzalez, who of course a year later was found shot dead in the back of a van. But that's another story. The Martinez win was the perfect kind of fight to springboard you into that Frampton fight. You mentioned the collision course. You'd beaten Martinez way more impressively than Carl had. The build-up, though, to the Frampton fight was golden. It was a mega fight at the time. Yeah. I only ever watched it once. I didn't watch it back. I've never watched it back since. But if I recall things correctly, you started off quite slow. But in the second half of the fight, I felt you really took over. And if I remember correctly, I think I had it a draw, Scott. I think you pretty much nicked all those late rounds. That's how I saw it. Yeah.
I mean, to answer, like I say, early on, the tactics we got wrong. Early on, we got the tactics wrong. Obviously, the rounds that he won and the rounds that... obviously, the way the first half of the fight, nothing really happened. But because he was on the front foot, when I watch it back, he looks busier. I'm not saying he looks in control, but he looks busier. He looks like he's pressing the fight. And obviously, so I can see why they was giving him, obviously, the rounds. And then, obviously, when he broke my jaw, that was... that slowed me down around or so. But then once I got hit on it again and there was no pain, he just was completely numb. That's when I thought, right, I need to put the pressure on, because if this gets worse, I need to do something. I need to just go for it. I can't feel it, so I might as well just go for it. And I need to pick because I think it was one of the lads shouted over to Joe in the corner, and he said I was 5-1 down, I think, something like that, or 6-1, or 5-2 down. I can't think, one of them ring, and they said, and I went I was shocked because I wasn't, I didn't feel like I was under any pressure, or I didn't feel like I was being bossed. Joe when I was in there. So then once I found out, I was behind. What Sky had it. So then obviously I put just started to forward what I should have done from the start, really, and how I usually boxed. And then once I did start to put the pressure on, towards the end he was hanging up. I had him rocked a bit. But like I said, it's nothing that I look back at that night and I got the tactics wrong early on, but it was a learning thing. And it is what it is. I don't sit here and regret anything, because during training I couldn't have trained any harder. I never cut corners, and it was just something that we got it wrong on the night, and that's just unfortunate.
How do you sort of score that fight, looking back on it now, Scott?
When I've watched it back since, obviously I look to give. If I don't think I've won a round clearly, okay, no, that's a round for him. So when I actually watch it back, and me being honest about myself, I give it in by 2 rounds.
Well, that is very honest.
You know, I'm not gonna kid myself when I sit back and like I could argue to give a couple of rounds to me, and which would make it a draw, but I'm not gonna. Like I always speak the truth, and I don't kid myself. And it's now every time I watch it back, I've watched it back probably 10, 15 times, and every time I watch it back, I give it in by 2 rounds.
Well, that is very honest. Like I say, I only watched it once, but I remember thinking that was a draw. I'm pretty sure I did. It was very close anyway.
Yeah.
And you had to battle with that broken jaw early on. You're back in the ring 10 months later against Jose Cayetano. Again, you become the quickest man to stop him on that Joshua Molina undercard in Manchester. Yep. After that, you boxed twice more, which included a points win against Virial Simeon, tough guy, on the Joshua Klitschko undercard, and then a 6th round knockout against Oleg Yefimовich in Monaco. Am I right in saying, Scott, that this was just... I think it was just before those 2 fights that you headed over to the States and started training under Freddie?
So I had the fight with Cayetano, still with Joe Gallagher. I got Joe, won that, and then after that fight, that's when I went over to link up with Freddie. And the first fight with Freddie was on the Joshua Klitschko at Wembley. That was the first fight that I had with Freddie. Good solid win against a solid operator in Viral Sumion. And then, like I say, I fought again in November, was it? In Monaco, against Oleg Yefimовich, and again stopped him. So I think that was the one that put me in line when I fought to fight Oscar Valdez then.
Yeah, but just tell me, before we get on to Valdez, Scott, what was it like, to go out there to the States and move out there, move away from Berry, go out there and train with someone like Freddie? I think you'd been over there a few times with Joe to his gym prior to that, but it was an exciting move. But at times, I have to admit it, it seemed like you'd kind of fallen off the face of the earth a little bit. You just disappeared,
Yeah, I mean, I'd been on. So the first time I went to Freddie's gym was when I was at Brian Hughes's. I used to go over. I went out over every year to do some training out there. I used to do 6 weeks out there. So I built up a friendship with Freddie over the years. Obviously, because I used to go out there to get the sparring, because obviously British fighters fight different to Mexicans, Americans, all different nationalities. So when obviously I was climbing the ladders and I was fighting fighters from Mexico, Venezuela, Argentina. They had that South American style. So during that process, when I was coming through and I was still at times, I used to go over to Freddie's and get the sparring with them sort of fighters, because the rhythm is different, the shot selection is different. So it was all like education. So I built up a friendship over the years with Freddie, and then I went out in January to do some training and also to just have a chat with Freddie and see if he'd be interested in training me. So when I was out there doing a bit of training, I asked him, and obviously to my delight, he said he'd be honoured to do, train me, and to be honest, it was the best decision I'd made at that time, because I felt like I'd hit a bit of a patch where I'd gone a bit stale, and I needed to freshen things up again and keep improving and keep learning. And if I didn't get that, or if I didn't think I could find somewhere where I was going to get that, a bit of a new lease of life, to get the buzz about it again, I would have packed it in back then. And obviously when I went out there and Freddie, said he'd love to train me, and that really did give me a new lease of life and give me that energy again. And it's I loved being out there. I used to go out there for 3 months. I used to do 3 months in, 3 months out. And it was, like I say, it's probably one of the best decisions that I've made, and it was a real enjoyable part of my career where I felt like I was improving on the level. We all know at that point when I'd gone to Freddie, I'd obviously worked for Brian Hughes for years. Obviously, then I've been with Joe Gallagher for years, and then my style was my style, and I was. When I say I was a complete fighter, as in that's what I was. My style was my style at that point. But then going over to Freddie's, it was the small little things that just potentially like ring positioning, just small little tweaks that his knowledge, that was just different ideas and different ways of doing things. To the previous trainers I'd been with, so. It was a change needed at the time, and it was a good part of my career. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that leads us into March of 2018. You got another crack at a world title, this time boxing Oscar Valdez for the WBO strap at the StubHub Center in Carson, California. One of the most brutal fights I've seen in recent years, I'd go as far to say. What do you recall? I can hear the little laugh there. What do you recall of that night, and obviously the experience just boxing in a venue like that in the States? It's a great venue, but the fight was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was, that's probably, he's in the probably top 3 favourite fights that I've had, that I've enjoyed. Even obviously I come off second best in that fight, and it was a true war where my nose got spread across my face. It was a real brutal fight, but it's one that it's one of the fights that I've most enjoyed. The training camp, in training were going well. 4 weeks before, I fractured my foot, so that really did hamper me. The training sort of thing, especially the movement and the mobility that I had. I still put the work in. I still believe that it was nearly a year to the day when I fought him that I'd sparred him, and I'd done probably between 36 and 46 rounds with him. And the spars was just complete wars. We just belted 10 bells of shit out of each other, excuse my language, but we just belted the living daylights out of each other anyway. Really, really, quality sparring. And I just thought, if the fight's anything to go by, I'm not going to need much movement, because I was, obviously, with the way my foot was, I was very flat-footed. I couldn't really move that quick, and I was like shuffling more than anything. But I just thought, if it comes out to be a shootout, I think I've got the beating of it. So obviously I ended up missing weight because I couldn't really, get the intensity of the training going and certain things like that. So coming overweight. But they actually thought I'd done it on purpose, which I haven't. If anything, it made me a bit more sluggish because a couple of pounds heavier than I would have liked to be. I think so that hampered me. But like I say, the fight, I really enjoyed the fight, and I think the worst thing that I could have done was actually break his jaw. I think it would have actually turned out to be a shootout. We would have stood there and gone toe to toe. But obviously, when I broke his jaw, he switched up his game. He kept his composure. So every credit to him, because I know what it's like to, fight when you've got a broken jaw. You've got to, keep your composure, not panic. He completely did that. He stuck to his game plan, changed it up, and boxed the perfect right, to be honest with you, because I couldn't close the gap quick enough, to be able to unleash combinations on it. mainly a lot of single shots that I was trying to ding, and he was just that half a step in front there because of his movement. But like I said, every credit to him. It was a brutal fighting to be outdoor, and I think the weather as well. The weather was absolutely lashing down. So in that, it felt like I was back in Manchester with the weather. But it was, like I say, it was good. I enjoyed it. I had the travelling support that come over to support me. But yeah, that's one night that I really do thoroughly, even though I come off second best, I thoroughly enjoy looking back and watching the fight.
Yeah, and it was a real brave effort. Like I say, it was such a brutal fight. You did return to winning ways 7 months later in Boston, Massachusetts on the Farmer Tennyson undercard against Mario Briones. Obviously a quick night. You got him out of there in 2 rounds. Again, after that, though, for a while, you seemed to disappear. You were out of the ring for about 15 months. What was the cause of, the cause of keeping you out that long?
Well, I fought in Boston, and then I was out again. So then I was back in the UK. Then I went back out to camp because I was supposed to fight in April, and that was supposed to be against Jason Valdez. But then I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before that, I had a bad injury on my arm. I ripped my bicep in half, and then the tendon that runs across your elbow that come off the bone. I had to have an operation on that, and it was a big operation. So that put me out of that, and that was, to be honest with you, that was probably one of the. I really felt like I was firing, and I thought I really expected people to see a real one of the best Scott Quiggs that has been. I felt like I was in a real good place mentally. I'm boxing my the sparring that I had through that camp and everything. It was, it had been absolutely quality, and I really was expecting a big performance from myself, because a performance, I was told if I would have got a win there, then that would have put me in line for a world title fight next. So when that happened, that was a bit of a gutter, because I really was expecting a big performance from myself. And like I say, it was happened in sparring, and I was sparring Lewis Neary.
Wow.
He was having some good spars. It was really, really good quality work. And I remember it clear as anything. It was in the 5th round. I threw a left hook, and it landed perfect. It was a peach of a shot, to be honest with you. And as soon as it landed, I just felt a rip down my arm, and I just thought, well, that don't feel right. And I couldn't lift my arm up, but it was because obviously the tendon had come off the elbow. It just felt weird, and obviously went to get it checked straight away, and it was just terrible news given to me that it did, the damage of what had been done. But then that's by the by. Then obviously I come back to the UK, I do my rehab, do everything like that. It had healed to an extent, and then I went back out to training camp again, because then I was supposed to be on the show in Saudi Arabia, so for the Joshua Ruiz rematch. So I was supposed to be on that card, and then I got in camp, and I had a recurrence of the injury. Not as bad, but they did. I did slightly tear had a tear in it again. So obviously I had to stop training and then come back home for Christmas. And then once that happened, then that's what I thought about. I'm just going to relocate back to the UK, and that's when I linked back up with Joe, and then obviously train for the Carroll fight. And because of the amount of time out the ring, from the fight, from obviously when I last was in the ring in October against Mario Briones, whatever he's called, to then being back in the ring in March, it was too long of a time. Ideally, I could have done with a 10-rounder, to get back in the rhythm, get back in the mix, because you can't beat ring time. So you can do all the training, but when you've not been in the ring, I didn't actually expect it to affect me as much as it did. But obviously giving credit to Carroll, I thought he boxed the perfect fight. I thought he kept his movement up, very sharp, and boxed a good fight.
Yeah, and we arrive at that final straw, that loss to Jono Carroll in on paper what was promised to be a war. You did give it your all, but you just didn't look your old self. You just couldn't really put it all together. Just briefly, Scott, just tell us, sort of what you sum up that fight as. It was obviously not the Scott Quigg that we've ever seen before.
No, yeah, and like I said, I don't kid myself, and I don't make any excuses. He was, but through training, I wasn't the sharpest in training. I trained hard. I was fit as a fiddle. Conditioning wise, I was fit. I was everything like that. But I wasn't firing in training. It wasn't the me of old. It was, and again, that was due to the time that I'd had out, and it was more of it was getting back into the rhythm and getting back into the swing of things. But I was thinking, because obviously I was putting the work in, I was training hard, I was, like I say, fitness wise, I was no problem whatsoever. I was fit as a fiddle, but condition wise, I didn't look as solid as I normally do. Obviously, maybe because having the time out of the ring, my body had gone soft a bit, as in, I looked a bit fleshy when I was on the scales. But again, I didn't cut no corners in training. The work was put in. But I knew going in that I wasn't my sharpest. Like I said, I don't kid myself. In training, sparring, I weren't my sharpest. I was doing okay, but I weren't like I was. Normally, I'd be battering my sparring partners. I'd be, really feeling raring to go near fight. That camp, I was just getting around it, doing okay. Some good days, some bad days, but that was just, it was. I just thought on the night, it'll all come together, but it weren't to be.
And I'm going to ask you two questions in one here. You obviously mentioned you relocated to the UK before the fight. You made that decision to get back with Joe Gallagher. Are you glad you did? Was the journey always meant to end with both of you in the same corner? And the kind of second question in that, obviously it wasn't the way you planned the fight to go. Was it difficult to retire immediately afterwards?
No, because it was obviously that's the way it was. That's the way I felt straight away. I wasn't, because the thing is, if that's me and that's all I can produce, and that's the best I can perform now, then I'm not here to stick around to make the numbers up. It's time to pack in. Thankfully, I've been successful and been smart with money and stuff like that. So it's not something that I needed or need to do, to still earn a living. So no, it wasn't hard. Hey, would I love to still box? Yeah, I would. So I still train every day. I still keep myself fit. I still eat well. But at the same time, I wouldn't kid myself, and I wouldn't. I don't need to. Go on with boxing. It's too dangerous of a sport to do, and if I can't perform at the top level, then I don't want to be around to make the numbers up. But to answer your other question now, is I'm glad I finished with Joe. It was in Manchester. We joined the corner. Hey, ideally, it would have been great to get a win and bear it with a win. But no, it's that was one thing that I'm glad that So it was with Joe at that fight, and it was in Manchester, and Joe was in the corner.
Yeah, I agree. It was sad to see, obviously, but I'm glad you guys were together. It felt right in many ways. You retire in the end with a record of 35-3 with 2 draws, 40 fights in total exactly. Did you ever think you'd have that many, Scott?
I think I've never put a number on the how many fights that I've had, but I think 40 fights decent. You said decent amount of fights. I think the thing is though these days is I don't think because of the time I was coming through. I had I had like 20 fights pretty quick. Because before I was probably one of the last ones to get word. Like they used to say, you have 20 to learn and then 20 to earn. So I was coming through, whereas we picked the right fights at the right time. We built me steadily, to get the experience through the lack of amateur experience that I had. Whereas I think around now, you're thrown in a lot quicker, a lot earlier. You gotta, you don't get 20 fights to learn now. You get 10 fights, 10, 12 fights, and then you've got to prove your worth straight away. So I think back then it was the time where I come through. I thought I'm glad I hit the 40 mark, to be honest with you. And
I want to ask you a couple of kind of quick fire questions, not so much quick fire, but much shorter questions and quick ones. I've got a few to finish up on. Who was the biggest puncher you ever got in there with, Scott? Whether that be fighting or sparring, I guess.
Probably Valdez, only because he never buzzed me in the fight or anything like that. But I remember on one of the sparring occasions, I walked into one and I thought, no, this fella can. He buzzed me a bit. I thought, no, this fella can whack. But that's probably one of the few times. Probably in my whole career in sparring, I've probably been buzzed about 8 times. But that one, that sticks out. Valdez. I thought, no, this fella can whack.
And I want to ask your favourite win, but I guess you kind of answered that. Kiko Martinez?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Kiko Martinez, has to be.
Okay. And who do you feel was your best kind of opponent all around, like your best all-round opponent?
Probably, I've only ever been in the ring with one person where I thought, I can't do it. So, it was the Salinas fight. I remember when he for the first 4 or 5 rounds, I had no control in that fight. What I mean is, whatever he wanted to do and whatever he threw, he landed. And that's the only time I've ever been in the ring thinking there's actually nothing I can do other than just keep walking forward and hopefully he gasses. Other than that, I've never really felt where, don't get me wrong, I've been outboxed before and I've been, where I've been, trying to grind someone down and that, whether it was sparring or fighting. But Salinas is the only person who I've actually been in the ring, whether I'm fighting or sparring, where I actually thought, there's actually nothing I can do here. I just hope he slows down.
Fair enough. That's honest again, like I say. Was there anyone you wish you'd have got the opportunity to fight, but it never happened?
I would have loved to get I would have loved a rematch with Valdez.
Oh gosh. Another 12 rounds.
I just would have loved the rematch. Yeah, no, I would have just loved a rematch with Valdez. A fully fit me. That's not making no excuses. He might have still got a win, even if I was, fully healthy. But I think different. But what I mean is, I would have loved to have fought him, 100%, and that would have, really, I think that would have been an absolute, real fireworks for everyone. It would have been a great fight. But yeah, if there was anyone, I would have, and I picked that. And people would probably thought, I would have loved to get a rematch with Frampton. But the Valdez, I would have loved a rematch with him.
And have you got any regrets about anything, the way your career went?
Nope. And that's one thing that I used to look, the way I lived my life, the way I was very selfish, the way I was, so dedicated. And like I said, I've missed big family events, major family things that have gone on. And so I really did live a disciplined, very selfish life, because I knew when I retired, I want to look in the mirror and have no regrets. And I can honestly say on the night that I don't regret anything. Well, even the fights that I've lost or the things that have happened. It was never. There's no regrets there, because anything that has not gone my way in my career has not been through a lack of effort or a lack of dedication. It was just wrong choices made. Like, for instance, the tactics or anything like that. It was out of my. It's nothing for a lack of desire or anything like that. It was just mistakes and that, and I don't regret that, because at the end of the day, that was the choice that I've made, and I learned from it. That's why I sit here today, the person I am. There was all learning experiences, but there's one thing that I don't regret anything.
And that's the best answer. I ask that to a lot of people, and I hear mixed responses, to be honest, but that's my favourite one to hear. I want to ask you this as well, Scott. Obviously, you made your mind up to retire. It seemed like you were certain straight away. Obviously, there's been some time go by now. I don't sense anything that you're U-turning on that, so that's a good thing. Are you glad to be retired now, knowing that if you were still actively boxing, you'd be affected by this pandemic and all the stress that causes?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It was one of them. I just wanted to get that fight in before all this hit. So I was lucky in one sense. But like I said, I'd love to fight again. But again, I'm a realist. I don't intend to be coming out of retirement, because physically, I could do. As in, what I mean is, I'm fit. I still train every day. I can still do what I'm doing. But there's more to life than boxing now. There's a lot of things that I missed out on with family and stuff like that when it comes to any relationships that it affected in the past. So now it's about moving on to some new challenges, new things to do. There'll be probably some news in the next couple of weeks that obviously what I'm set with and stuff like that. So I've got these definitely things that will I've got to feel, give me a purpose still, because I think that's where a lot of fighters go. So it gets to them, because when you go from having a purpose and a routine to your day, as in, like, your purpose is obviously you get up and you train and you have a purpose to go about your day. When you get fighters that retire, or whether it's any sports athlete that you retire, then what's your purpose for that day? So if you've got no purpose, you literally go around in circles and you don't know what to do, and I've been through I went through a certain patch of that, period of that. But obviously with this COVID thing, it gives you a lot of time to think and assess. And I've used that time wisely, and I've put it into with what the negative situation we've had. I've turned it into a positive, and so I've managed to find myself a new purpose, and things are looking bright.
good for you, my friend. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it when the time is right. Coming down to the last two questions, Scott. It's a very juicy one. This one, I've saved this till last, and this is one I'm really interested on hearing your answer to. Do you feel like you got the respect that you deserved from the British fight fans?
Yeah, I do. I think I do believe that with what I've achieved and how good I am, when I say how good I am, what I as good as what I've achieved, and because I've never claimed to be the most naturally talented. So I've worked and I've grafted for everything, that I've achieved and everything, that I've worked for. And I do think, there's been a lot more naturally talented fighters out there than me that has achieved less because of a lack of dedication or a lack of discipline. And like I said, I never proclaimed to be the most, the best fighter, the most naturally gifted, but I've achieved what I've achieved through hard work, discipline, sacrifice, and whether people like me or support me or they support a different fighter, over me, I still believe that I do have I've earned a lot of people's respect for with what I've achieved and the way I've been dedicated to a career and the amount of work and effort I've put in. So I do believe I've gained the respect of the British boxing public.
Yeah, good, man. That is, I feel, what you deserve. And at some points in your career, I think you've been a little bit underappreciated. But I haven't seen anyone saying anything after the Valdez fight. I think a lot of people had to give in there. And just my last question, Scott. After everything, you've had this career. We've spoke all about it here. It seems like, as you say, you've turned the negative pandemic situation into a positive one. Things are on the up for yourself. Are you a happy man?
Yeah, 100%. I sit here today now, and I'm content. Like I say, I'm happy with what I've achieved. I've enjoyed the journey. I've travelled all over the world. I'm fortunate that my mum and dad backed me, let me drop out of school. Never made me get a job. They supported me while I was coming through, so I could give me every chance, to become and achieve what I've done. Thankfully, I went on, to achieve what I've done, and it was, like I said, I sit here today, I can look in the mirror and I'm content with the person I've become and who I am today.
And that is literally one of the most important things in the world. So I'm pleased to hear you say you're happy, Scott. Just finally, before we wrap it up, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners before we let you go. Obviously, I really appreciate all this time you've given us this week. If you've got any closing words at all, Scott, anything at all, take it away. The floor is yours. Yeah,
I just want to say, everybody's, supported me over the years, whether it's been, all the people that have been, really supportive, followed my career, supported me, and all the people that have, from negative stuff, it's all part of the game. I appreciate all the support, all the, the journey, and like I say, I hope everyone, enjoyed the entertainment I was able to give, and I just look forward to the future and hope everybody else, supported me has a successful future too.
Classy stuff, Scott. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. It really has, and going over your entire career. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck for the future, and I hope that we can speak again at some point.
No, thank you very much, and I really appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 258 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former WBA Super-Bantamweight World Champion, Mr. Scott Quigg. There has, of course, been some news break whilst we've been recording the show. Two things have happened. Alexander Usyk will now be fighting Derek Chisora. The date has been confirmed, October 31st, and Matchroom have signed a promotional contract with the undefeated 6'6" Chinese heavyweight southpaw and Olympic silver medalist Zili Zhang. That's pretty much everything, though. The biggest thanks of all, of course, goes out to you, the listeners. Remember to tell a friend to tell a friend. Enjoy the tons of boxing action that we have on TV this weekend. More importantly, though, stay safe, have a good one, and we shall see you all again next week.